soldier, all-round hero, if I may say that, Tobias. Now, we've had in the week President Zelensky coming here and saying that he wants British fighter jets. We've got Rishi Sunak saying, well, we can train some Ukrainian fighter pilots here, but he's prevaricating over providing this aircraft. Who's right, Zelensky or Rishi Sunak?
Well, it was a powerful performance, wasn't it, by President Zelensky? I mean, huge gravitas there, really exhibiting the wartime leader characteristics that he's come to be recognized for. But his message was actually to say, stay the course. This war is not over. You've given us tanks. That was a painful debate in its own right. But tanks alone is not going to be able to win the battle. Tanks need top cover. So in calling for aircraft, what he was actually saying, not just to Britain, but to the West, was we need further help. We've got a Russian continuation of the war likely to take place in the spring with Putin's offensive. I need that top cover to be able to provide us. That means if you're going to request planes such as this, we need to get Ukrainian cadets into the Western flight schools, but also think about that air power. He stated, yes, I need these fast jets. It's good to see that Russia's Air Force is not able to dominate the skies, and all that's because of the air defenses that we've given already. But it takes about 4 or 5 years to train a fast jet pilot. It may be other ways that we can assist. And this is where Rishi Sunak was right to look at all options. The A-10 Thunderbolt, for example, a powerful aircraft that was used in Afghanistan, that could be used. You could use drone aircraft as well to provide that top cover. Even the Super Tucano as well can fire all the weapon systems just about. Air to air, air to ground,
Tobias,
that any fast jet pilot can fire. So these are the things I think we need to start considering.
But it sounds to me, and this is a rare situation for you to be in, Tobias, that you're actually siding with Boris Johnson here because he's calling for this air cover. You're calling for it. Why is Rishi Sunak prevaricating?
Well, interesting that you sort of spin it that way. I wish Boris Johnson would have sent more equipment earlier on. He did his best, and Britain has done well, in fact, pushing the envelope of what the West was willing to send. I mean, the bigger picture here is that we've been spooked by Putin. He's taken advantage of our timidity, how risk averse we've become. We need to rekindle that Cold War statecraft. This isn't just about Ukraine, make it very, very clear. This is about Russia taking on the West, redesigning Eastern Europe. If the war hadn't happened, inflation in the UK would be 4%. 4%, not 11% where it is now. How different the negotiations would be with the public sector, on pay reviews, if that was the case. It's in our interest to resolve this. It's in our interest to close this down in 2023. But Putin doesn't want that. He wants to drag this out into the long game so he can then win. And there's also, I'm afraid, shines a very unhelpful light onto our own defence posture because our army is too small.
Well, let's get onto that in just a minute.
Our air force is too small.
Let's get onto that in just a minute. You did mention there you did clash in the past with Mr. Johnson about, land defences versus cyber. Let's just hear your exchange, which I think we can play out now.
Old concepts of fighting big tank battles on the European landmass, which I think is what you're driving at, are over, and there are other better things that we should be investing in the FCAS, in the Future Combat Air System, in cyber. This is how warfare of the future is going to be fought in our advanced early warning systems, and that is where we need to be. I think that the investments that we are making,
you can't hold ground with cyber. You can't hold ground with AI.
So that was you saying to Mr. Johnson, that was back in November 2021 at the Liaison Committee, Tobias. You said you can't hold the ground with cyber. So Boris Johnson was wrong then?
Oh, completely wrong. And I think he now recognises that. I mean, this whole idea that we were going to move our entire defence posture to sort of cyber and space security at the cost of our land warfare capabilities. Back in 1990, at the end of the Cold War, we had over 900 battle tanks. And we've cut that down now to about 148. Frigates and destroyers, we had over 50 of those, protecting our sea lanes around the world. We embrace globalization. We need to continue to protect those. You can't do that with just 18 frigates and destroyers. And we had 36 squadrons of fast jets. We're down to about 7 today. You know, really, we're still on a peacetime budget. We've moved into a new era of insecurity. I make it really clear. We're still in denial. Another Cold War has started, not on one front, but on two fronts, with Russia and China. And my concern is that Russia and China are now going to coalesce, are now going to merge together, knowing that they can exploit the international rules-based order unless we stand up. And that's what Britain's done in the past. That's what we need to do in the future.
Should the Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, resign if Rishi Sunak doesn't commit to 3% of GDP as defence spending?
It's for Ben to decide his own position. I will defend Ben Wallace in behind the scenes, trying to encourage and recognise the need that 2% peacetime defence budget is not enough. You know, as I say, we've entered this new era of insecurity. All NATO nations need to move up to 3%, not least ours. It's not just equipment, can I say? It's actually also to do with stockpiles of weapon systems. I visited Belfast last week with the Defence Select Committee. The Starstreak anti-air missile, quite incredible. We'd actually stopped making these a few years ago. We only have 60 left, 60 of these left in our stockpiles. We need to start to rekindling the assembly lines to make the equipment that's needed for the threats that we now face that are coming fast over the horizon. And we really are not in a position to, we're so poorly defended now, even Germany is saying that we can't take on our NATO responsibilities.
I know. We're going to be covering that as well a little later in the show. Tobias, let's just get on to politics very briefly. There's been a poll in the Telegraph suggesting that come the next general election, the Conservatives might fall into third place behind Labour and the SNP. Now, we've also got other approval polls, whether you like it or loathe it, that Boris Johnson, even at his least popular, remains more popular than Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. So you must see Boris Johnson as an electoral asset come the next general election, don't you, Tobias?
He's an incredible communicator, there's no doubt about it. But let's not forget why he ended up being thrown out by his own ministers. 50 resigning in one day because he wasn't telling the truth. And all these polls are interesting, of course they are. But the most critical poll that's important is whether a prime minister has the support of their own backbench MPs. Without that, it's a non-starter. We saw that with Liz Truss as well. If you don't have the support of the MP,
Lee Anderson
seems to
be. Lee Anderson seems to be very popular, Tobias.
I mean, are we having a serious conversation here? Leading the country, you need to be able to command all tribes in the Conservative Party from the centre ground and appeal to the whole of the nation, not just to a particular angle, a particular cohort, a particular part of the spectrum, which I appreciate Lee Anderson does very well indeed, not least on your programme.
Mr. Ellwood, I need to cut it there. Thank you so much for your time this morning.